We're back. Sex in the City, the original series, the OG, recapping, reviewing every single episode so we can finally understand why we were so disappointed in the reboot, and just like that. hmm Welcome back, everyone who's sticking with me through this entire series. We are now in season 2, episode 8. The man, the myth, the Viagra. And guess which one has to deal with the Viagra? Take a wild guess. You let me know in the comments. Seriously, is it that hard to tell? Let me tell you something. As I have been saying before, I started watching the series in season 2, and then I had to go back and watch season 1 with my girlfriends every Friday night to understand the big myth of this show. And I'm going to say that this was one of the best ones that really turned me around into so much more dedication to wanting to watch it more, because it had some very interesting plot twists, and they, touched upon things that we normally don't talk about. And Samantha came up on top, as always. She made me laugh, and I stuck with her through thick and thin. So I'm really excited to bring this one because it also brings back one of the introduces us to one of the characters that is very long lasting. Did I know it back then? No. But watching it for the first time was intrigued. Rewatching it after the series ended was so happy. And then the movies came out, and then the reboot came out, and then this character just broke my heart even more. So, are you ready? Episode 8. We're halfway through also, just so you know. The man, the myth, the Viagra. Stay tuned. The scene opens with "Once upon the second time around," with one of Carrie's lovely taglines, which I did really enjoy, to be honest with you. I loved when she used the taglines and then how she spread it out to the different scenarios in the scene. I love that. I don't think they did that much too often after a couple of seasons, and I know it didn't happen in Just Like That, or maybe it did. I don't know. I kind of blocked that show out. So she is going on a date with Mr. Big to an Italian restaurant, Del Marino's. And it's supposedly, as she quotes it in the show, somewhere on Mulberry Street. I just want to let you know, full stop, it is not. It is not in Little Italy in New York City. Okay, that is a real restaurant, and it's located in the theater district on West 49th Street. So if you ever want to go there, don't go to Little Italy. It'll be there. Okay. But I thought it was cute. I love those little Italian restaurants. I've personally never eaten there myself, but I have been to Little Italy, and I do love the food that's there. So I cannot recommend if the food is great, but I've heard some good things about it. So as she's going in there, he is obviously a patron there. He's favorite. He knows everybody. Hey, paisano, they're all hugging and all this other stuff with him, and he's a regular. So when they're sitting down to the table, one of the, I guess, owners, I want to say, came by, and he says, "I want to introduce you to my girlfriend, Carrie." And it literally stopped Carrie in her tracks. And she says to him, "You've never called me your girlfriend before." And he goes, "Yes, I have. It's just not to your face." So needy. Needy baby, greedy baby. So that's what I said. She's like the desert and he's like the water. She just gets so excited for the little drips of water that he gives her whenever he feels like it. And I find this very disturbing because now all of a sudden he calls her his girlfriend. And for those who are OG watchers, we know the truth. Because this season does not end well. If that was his girlfriend, they really ping pong this guy to be push and pull. One minute he's hot, the next minute he's cold, the next minute he's there, the next minute he's going off, and you know. And it's like it feeds into her neurosis, because she's like, "Oh my God, you've never called me your girlfriend before. What are you, a child?" I'm sorry. It's very hard to not put in my feelings because I've watched this so many times. And if they had ended it with the second movie, the way that movie ended, I would be okay. Even through all the bull crap that he put her through and she allowed to happen and her stupidity and everything that she did too, I would be okay with it, because I was like, it's a relationship. They belong together. They are literally soulmates. Horrible people. But no, it gets worse in the reboot. Sorry. Let me jump back into the series before I forget my thoughts. So as she's so happy to be introduced as the girlfriend, then we have one of the owners singing, and he's singing a beautiful Italian song. And then he asks Big to come up and sing. And apparently Big does this quite often, and he's very comfortable singing in front of people. So he gets up and he says, I want to dedicate this song to the beautiful lady at the table. Then he starts singing, when I was 17. It was a very good, she almost choked on her wine. It was hilarious. You know what? For all intents and purposes, this was a cute date. If he was really giving a shit about her. And this was just actually really going somewhere. But I have a feeling that he's done this before. Many times. So as he's singing his When I Was 17 song, she is just looking up into the stars and saying, this was amazing. I never felt so amazing before. Some crap like that. So she is, in the land of her world. I don't want to say the word because it's going to come up in the rest of the show. So I want to save it for then. She's deep in it. Unlike the next scene, Miranda, who is on a date with this guy. She's at a comedy club, one of the worst comedy clubs that I have ever heard, still to this day. I've been to several, and whatever that comedian is spitting out of his mouth, I'm glad I've never been to a comedy club with a guy like that on stage, because I would have booed him. I would have thrown fruit at him. I would have been walking out the door because he was horrendous. Okay. So apparently he's an architect, divorced. And they're both wanting to know when the comedy is going to start, but he decides that he needs to step off to the men's room, and for some godforsaken reason, he leaves his phone on the table, which I don't know why. Maybe they're not accustomed to phones back then, but I would never leave my phone on the table. And guess what happens? The phone rings. And guess what happens? The stage comedian is telling Miranda to pick up the phone because it's interrupting his set. And she's like, it's not my phone. And he's chanting to everyone to say, pick up the phone, pick up the phone, pick up the phone. And she picks it up and she goes, whatever his name is, phone. And she says, no, who's this? I'm his date. And whatever the hell that woman said, apparently, the comedian or the farce comedian comes up and he says, what did she say? Who is it? He grabs the phone, gets back on stage, and he says, who is this? And it's the man's wife. And everybody in the crowd starts cackling and crying and laughing. The guy comes back and he goes, hey, douchebag, your wife is on the phone. And Miranda, first of all, I wouldn't even answer the phone. I would have just be like, yo, I'm not touching that phone. Okay. And she tells him, I thought you were divorced. Well, no, I'm really separated. Yeah, because there's a big difference between separated and divorced. And she goes, well, this is me separating. And she's about to walk out the door and comedian dickhead says, I'll F you. They really made him to be a jerk. And then the guy gets back on the phone. He goes, honey. I'm like, I thought you were separated. Mm-hmm. Que cojones. These guys got balls. And on top of that, how much of a stupid doofus are you to leave your freaking phone on the table? If you're married. Because you're married. You're married. Next up, my favorite scene. The girls. And what they feel about men, dating, and urban relationship myths. Mm-hmm. I got one for you. Stay tuned. Now that we've covered the man, Mr. Big, let's cover the myth. The urban relationship myth. We are with the girls outside of one of those restaurants outside sitting, eating, the ladies who brunch. And of course, Miranda's complaining about her date or whatever the hell that was at the comedy club. And, she is upset because she had asked the guy straight out, were you divorced? And he says, yes, for 3 years. And she couldn't believe that he wasn't. Shocking. And Samantha, the expert in this title, says that, and they cannot F you. 97% of the men cannot F you worth a damn. Now, listen, I will take her saying that because we all know that if she knows that 97% of the men cannot F you worth a damn, she's an expert or a sexpert. Very concerning. Is it really 97%? I believe her. Charlotte, of course, the Pollyanna of the entire fucking group. That's not true. He maybe did like you and he could have gotten a divorce. And Miranda's like, please don't Pollyanna on me because I will hit you with this rice pudding. And I'm like, here we go. And she's like, my friend Amanda's friend dated a guy and he said he was going to get a divorce and he got a divorce and now he's with her and they're married and they have kids and he's a wonderful father. And then Samantha's like, no, Miranda's like, never happened. She's like, excuse me? She goes, that's BS. It never happened. There's always a friend of a friend that everybody knows that nobody ever met, that always hear this story. And this is what the girls are literally talking about. Carrie's quiet. Samantha's chiming in, and all of them are saying, it's always somebody you don't know, but it's a friend of a friend. And they're always, giving you this story about this guy was doing this. And all of a sudden he turned around and magically was the best man in the entire world. Now, before we get into what really is this topic, okay, I'm going to interject and say, I was thinking about this and I said, has that ever happened to me where I heard of a friend, some myth, urban relationship myth thing. And I was thinking, other than the one that I had talked about in my last episode about the one that slept with someone the first night, got married and had a kid, and then they ended up cheating on each other for most of their relationship. That's not a myth that I want to get into. I was thinking, I said, I have never heard of an urban relationship myth other than this show. This show is a myth. Why, you may ask? Well, because nobody lives like this. Have you seen Carrie? How does she pay her bills? Nobody lives on the Upper West Side in a rent-controlled apartment. I don't care how rent-controlled it is. Buys all the shoes that she buys. Falls ass backwards into relationships that always want to cook for her, give her money, support her, fawn all over her. It doesn't happen. This entire show is a myth. Okay? Charlotte, a little bit more realistic, the desperate woman that wants to get married and pretends that she's engaged to every person that she's ever met. Yeah, I know that girl. Samantha, I am guessing, and I really thought long and hard about this, and I realized that the friend that I was talking about in my other video with the marriage and the sleeping with the guy one night and I think that she was a sex addict. I would equate her to being the Samantha, though we never really stayed friends because she started flirting with somebody that I was dating right in front of me. Okay? I cut that shit off real quick. I was like, I don't think so. And I realized now that I think back at it that she had a problem. She had an attention need problem, a sex problem. I don't know what the hell is going on in her relationship or marriage or what the hell you want to call that, but she clearly was unstable. Samantha, at least she stayed single and she did what she did, though she slept with married men, and I don't agree with that. But there is a problem there. Okay? So as far as urban relationship myths, yeah, the entire show, especially Big and Carrie. Carrie, specifically, her. Okay, back to reality. So, as they're all coming down on poor Charlotte, Charlotte's like, no. And then Samantha's like, have you ever personally met someone that their relationship has magically changed? And she says, yes, I have. She goes, who? And she points at Carrie. And Carrie, she goes, their relationship with Big is completely different this time. Carrie's like, yeah, okay, sure. I'll chime in. I'll put my 2 cents into it. And Miranda's like, how? How is it different now? She goes, I don't know. Well, I do know, but you're so scary right now that I don't want to tell you. Sure, we'll go with that. And she's like, well, tell me how. She goes, well, it's different because, maybe we think that if we came back together, it must have been for a reason. Sure. That's us women projecting what we want to believe instead of seeing what's in front of us. This girl, needy baby, greedy baby. Oh my God. I can't believe how riled up I'm getting about this. There's something that irritates me about this entire scenario with her. I can't stand it. And Samantha laughs and she's like, yeah, that's not true. And she goes, well, why are you laughing? She goes, how much time do you need? That's Miranda. So then now we're back in Carrie's apartment and she's actually going in her mind thinking about all of the myths that has happened throughout time where the Greeks were to create these myths to justify certain things in their lives that happened and relationships and yada, yada, yada. And she's like, maybe, and I'm paraphrasing, maybe, did the gods actually smile on me and Mr. Big, or is that me trying to accept it? Something like that. In her mind, like that little person that's in her head, that one that I keep asking for her to come out, that one, it's telling her, wake up, wake up, wake up. You are in your own fairy tale. There's nobody else with you. Not Big, not your friends, not the 7 dwarfs, not the little animals that come out and sing. You are in your own little fairy tale. Ironically, the fairy tale does come true at the end, but nonetheless, right now it's a fairy tale. Okay? So then she writes down, do we need to have myths to date? Stating like, in order for us to justify our relationships or what we want to pretend are relationships, do we need to subscribe to being in a myth in order to cope and compensate for the lies? Lies. Tell me lies. Tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies. I'm going to get riled up because I know where season 2 is going. And this is where I start to swim to the deep end of the ocean, because this is what pissed me off about this whole thing about him calling her his girlfriend. Okay? Next. The Viagra. Wait for it. Stay tuned. And when you get a chance, if you haven't already, subscribe. The Viagra. Samantha at a bar after work. A cosmopolitan and Donald Trump. You cannot get any more New York than that. And literally that's what Carrie narrates. And literally, you really can't. You really can't. That's pretty priceless if you ask me. And back then it would have been really cool. We won't be seeing him roaming around in any bars anytime soon. He's got a bigger job to do. So as she is, taking a look at what she's, her company or the company that's at the bar with an older man and Donald Trump walks out and the older man steps up to Samantha and he says, excuse me, I was so taken back by your beauty. I think I just agreed to finance Donald Trump's new project. You owe me $150 million. And she's like, do you take a check? I can't. He goes, can I buy you a drink? She goes, no, I already have one. He said, can I buy you an island? There you go. Now you got her attention. She's like, I don't know. Can you? He's like, do you come here often? She goes, honey, that line is older than you. The girl's got balls. Okay, but he wasn't that young looking to begin with. So, rightfully so. But she is still intrigued. And he's like, you're a real pistol. Pistol? Okay. So, in the hour that she spent with him, she finds out that he is single and he has millions and millions of dollars. The fact that she stayed there for an hour to find out that he had millions and millions of dollars, pretty impressive. Samantha. So the next scene we have is her and Carrie walking down Central Park. Beautiful location. Always. I've said this 100 times. If I go anywhere, it's Central Park. It's my one place in New York that I never failed to go, especially up and down that strip. Oh my God, I love that place, Fifth Avenue. Jesus Christ. And the homes and not even homes because they're all, penthouses and, beautiful buildings. So she's like, Samantha asks, so what is your age limit with dating men? And Carrie's like, oh, I don't know, 50? She goes, factor in millions and millions of dollars. 50? Because Big is just under that, 42. And she's like, well, I just met the cutest guy. And she's like, 50? Samantha's like, 60? Honey, is he on Medicare? Yeah. Yes, he is. He is. With millions and millions of dollars. God bless. By the way, did I mention that Michael Patrick King wrote this episode? Already that lost my smile, but at least he was trying to be better back then. So now she says, your attitude reeks of ageism. And she's like, are you serious? Are you seriously thinking about doing this? Yeah. Millions and millions of dollars? Yeah. Come on. What are you? Maybe. So she's like, and what about, the boudoir? And, Samantha's like, well, we haven't really discussed that. I'm guessing, just wild guessing, if the guy is going to have millions and millions of dollars to spend on you and buy you an island, he's going to want something in return. And that's when I said, okay, maybe that won't be an option. But then again, this was back then in 1999. Nowadays, even though you could be an early 72-year-old, you can look like, what is happening here? This is Mama Kardashian. She's going to be 70 years old in about a month. Have you seen what they've done to her? She looks like Kim. I'm going to interject before we get into the next scene because I wanted to do a separate video on this, but I'm going to just put this here. She looks amazing. Okay? She looks as young as her daughter. And I've never really followed the Kardashians, and it never occurred to me how much she looks like Kim or Kim looks like her mom until I saw the picture of them together. I was like, holy crap. She really is the spitting image of her mother, because her mother looks like she's 40. Now, this doctor, Dr. Levine, apparently did this miracle job, and he is nowhere to be on the internet. He does not have a website. This job costs about $500,000, and he only takes referral. I'm just going to say this. I don't know who referred her to him, but that takes a lot of trust for someone to do that to me, because that is a scary procedure to me. What I see there, though, she looks amazing. She's going to be 70 and I give her all the credit in the world. We have decided not to age. We're not aging. God bless us, and I don't know if I'm going to be around in 10 years when she's going to be 80. I would love to see how whatever is done now looks at her at 80. Is she going to look like she's 50? Because this guy, for me, I understand that he only takes referral, but I want to know who you did in Hollywood. I have my suspicions of who could have been some of his clients. Demi Moore. Because that is nothing short of, oh my God. Now, again, I don't know if it's the lighting and where she is. I would love to see it in person to see if it looks as good as it does in the photos. But even still, even if it's, let's say 20% doesn't look as well as it does in the photos, that's still an amazing job. Now, you have that kind of money, you want to live that kind of life, that's great. But what my point is like anyone could look like that now with money. So a young 72 is literally a young 72 facially. Now, what would impress me more is the body. And that comes up because you could fix whatever you want over here. You can get all the lipo and all the tightening and all that stuff. But I would like to know, does the face match the body? Because That to me is a telltale sign of what the hell's going on here. So unfortunately, in 1999, when this aired, he couldn't have had that procedure done. And we get to see what the rest of him at 72 looks like. The Viagra. Next up, we get to have the introduction of one character and the reality of the selfishness of Carrie and how her life revolves around Mr. Big. They do. We're back to the man. So Carrie's at Big's house as he's cooking her veal. This is one hell of a piece of veal, he says, and she says, yes, it is. Okay, I've never had veal. I've had mutton. I've never had veal. So as they're speaking and he's trying to cook for her while they're smoking a cigarette over the piece of veal. So weird. I would love to have ashes as my seasoning in my veal. And, she's helping by salting the veal. I love the fact that he cooks. I really do. I love a man who cooks, though I love to cook, and I've said this 100 times. I do find something sexy when a man wants to cook for you and he cooks and he does it well. And from what I can see, Big is a good cook. Of course they write him as a good cook. It's her that irritates me. So as they're salting the veal, or I should say she's salting the veal with a cigarette in her hand, she says, I need to ask you a favor. And he stops. He goes, what? He goes, I want you to get to know my friends. He goes, I know your friends. Charlotte is the brunette. Miranda is the redhead. And Samantha's trouble. I love that because it's true. Okay. And he's like, what do you need? And she goes, I want you to meet my friends this weekend, whatever day, I think it's Friday, at a bar called Denial. And as they say as she narrates, it's the hottest spot in New York. Apparently everybody in New York wants to be in denial. I've only said this 100 times. Denial. She is so in denial, yet it's still a river in Egypt, but she is in denial. And I loved that they brought that up. I was like, you see, I know, be crazy. She's in denial. So as she's still salting the veal, the smoke seasoned veal, the phone rings and it's Miranda. And Miranda is asking her, hey, where are you? Because you were supposed to meet me here. I've been waiting for you for like an hour. She's like, well, didn't you get my message? And she goes, no, I didn't call in my phone. Is everything okay? She goes, no, my Biggs. And she's like, you're a Biggs? You're supposed to be having dinner with me. She goes, no, I know. It's just that, he wanted to cook me a dinner, a veal. And she's like, you blew me off for a politically incorrect meat. Now, can someone explain to me why is veal politically incorrect? I didn't get that statement, but okay. And she's like, he wanted to cook me dinner, and Miranda goes off on her. She goes, so bottom line, your relationship has not changed. It's still the same. You drop your entire life to be with him, and this is the way it is, always with him. And, poor Carrie is like, I really can't talk about this right now. She goes, you know what? Enjoy your veal. She hangs up on her. Carrie, Big asks her, is everything okay? She goes, yeah, everything's fine. You see what I'm saying? It begins. The selfishness. So Miranda's at the bar and she asks for another glass of wine to the bartender. And we get Steve. And he goes over to her and he says, please, as he's pouring a glass of wine, she's like, excuse me? Please what? I would like another glass of wine, please. And she's like, are you allowed to talk to me this way? Okay. He goes, yeah, I think so. And he walks away. And they go back and forth in this really cute banter. And she's like, he tells her, thank you, Steve. And she's like, okay, that's very cute, but I'm not trying to be a bitch. I just got off the phone. I got into an argument. He goes, yeah, I heard. Boyfriend? And she's like, I don't think that's any of your business. Girlfriend. Butcher. She's like, butcher? He goes, yeah, the veal. He goes, I took a shot. And that got her. I'm going to tell you, I thought he was adorable. And again, back in 1999, I didn't understand the extent of this relationship. I was like, oh, he's kind of cute. What do you want me to say? He was cute. And she's like, what are you reading? He goes, The Joy of Bartending, Hemingway. Hilarious. Hilarious. And that's what won me over. I love a guy with a sense of humor. She goes, "Oh, so you're funny now?" So he goes over to her and she's going to pay for the drink. And he says, "No, it's on me." She's like, "Why?" That's my New Yorker. He goes, "It's a bribe. I want you to stay and chat with me. Otherwise, I'm going to have to listen to these NYU kids talk about Fiona Apple." My God, I haven't heard that name. I don't even remember who she was back then, but after a while, I realized who it was. I'm like, wow, whatever happened to her? So what do you think happens next? Instead, the bribe turned into, she took him home. He served her up 2 orgasms. And as they're done in the boudoir, he gets up and he goes, "That was really great." And she goes, "Yeah, sure." As she's setting her alarm clock at 3:40 in the morning. And she's like, "Is that your shirt over there?" He's like, "Yeah." She goes, "Uh-huh." And he's like, "Can I get your number?" And she goes, "Why?" He goes, "Because I want to call you up and take you out." I was pretty impressed. She's like, "Listen, let's just call this what it is. It was a one night stand. You don't have to pretend that you're going to call me." He served her up 2 orgasms and she was willing to let him go. I would have latched on to him like my favorite line, a monkey in a banana tree. I was like, "Okay, sure." And he's like, he's laughing it off and he goes, "You're a real pisser." And she's like, "Okay." And he says, "Listen, stop by the bar when you have a chance one of these days." And she goes, "Okay." And he starts to walk out and she's like, "Great sex." And he's laughing and she's very confused of why this guy that she took home for a one night stand that gave her 2 orgasms wants to take her out again. Now, 1999, first time watching this, I'm like, that's a possibility. I didn't expect anything to come out of it. Boy, did something come out of it. Steve, the bartender, my Steve. And yes, I know that he messed up. He cheated on her in the movie. It pissed me off, no matter what happened. And I understand that they got through it on a bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, and they both decided to stay together and make it work. And they could have left it at that because I was completely happy with the way that ended because I felt like he was the one for her. Do you want me to say it? Until, just like that, I can't even. I can't even. Like my hair's standing up. Like seriously, they're standing up. Because do you realize how much time we invested with this couple? And I'm not saying that it was not wrong for her to make the decision to change into her lifestyle that she changed into. It's just the way that it happened. I'm going to harp on this till I can't no more. That whole storyline was ridiculous. Ridiculous. And we're never going to get to see his grandkid because the show's over. You know, intentionally for Michael Patrick King because he wanted to end it that way. Bullshit. Next up, we flip back into the Viagra. They do. The Viagra. So after a few dinners and dates with the young 72-year millionaire with Samantha, she is at his mansion and we go through the diamond show. He says, open up the napkin. She opens up the napkin and out comes out a diamond bracelet. She's like, oh, and he opens up his napkin and out comes 2 diamond earrings. Oh, Samantha's enthralled. And he points to the food tray. Goes, open that. She goes, no. She opens it up and it's a diamond necklace. And Samantha's like, I have a piece through. Okay. I was like, well, talk about dinner and a show. And of course, the maid who looks thrilled, who's his age, I'm sure she's seen this 1,000 times before. I have a feeling that he's done this before. He's good because he knows how to work this. He knows what he's doing. He ain't stupid. Okay. So the next time they're in the living room and he's putting on a record, not a tape, a record, and Carrie's narrating that he has moves that Samantha hasn't seen it ever, and he's dancing his little two step as he's walking over to her, and he tries to turn off the light. And she's like, "What? You can't pay the light bill?" She does not want anything to do with this guy physically. She has the diamond bracelet, necklace, and earrings on, but she's not a dumb little cat. Okay. So he says, he comes clean in his version. He goes, "Listen, I have maybe 10 to 12 years tops left." And she goes, "No, you're so young." He goes, "No, no, 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 no. I know. I'm looking to have some fun. And I know a beautiful woman like you can get any guy she wants. True. But I'll make it worth your while." And she's like, "Oh, really?" So the next scene you have is they're walking into his mansion boudoir. And Carrie narrates that the urban relationship myth that Samantha fell into was a woman walks into a bar and she ends up living happily ever after for 10 to 12 years tops. Mm-hmm. Do we know anybody that may be in that type of relationship with a multi-millionaire at 72 years old? I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. I suspect most of the real housewives are on that plan, and a few other people. So, she asks him to turn off the lights because she's going to, do this cat, and she's going to do it her way because she has to be not in denial. So she's like, Ed's touch, Ed's kiss was not a kiss of a 72-year-old. Ed's touch was not a touch of a 72-year-old, as he's, on top of her. And then he goes, "I got to go to the little boy's room." Okay. In the middle of what's going on. And as he walks away, I'm not going to show it, but she looks at his ass, and it was an ass of a 72-year-old. And it freaked Samantha out that she ran out of the bedroom with the maid, waiting for her to run out, because again, I'm almost sure that Ed has done this before. And as she's running out, the maid slams the door on Samantha, and the only thing I noticed is that Samantha kept the diamond necklace, the diamond earrings, and the diamond bracelet. I was like, "You go, girl." Those was expensive, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. I guess her happily ever after could not withstand 10 to 12 years tops. Didn't someone else? Yeah, there was another woman, another actress. I can't remember her name. She was with an older man, and she passed away too. Oh my God, I wish I remember now. I'll put her picture up here. I cannot remember her name, and she was pretty popular, and I remember her daughter is beautiful now. Oh my God, I wish I could remember. Maybe I have 10 to 12 years tops too. I may be getting, see now. Next scene we have is Miranda in her beautiful apartment. I really love Amanda's apartment. Oh, not Amanda. Miranda's apartment. So she's reading the New York Times, and the doorbell rings, and it's Steve, the bartender. And she's like, "What do you want?" He's like, "Do you want me to tell your neighbors? You want everybody to hear?" I'm like, "Oh, he's back for booty call, so this is not going to last." He goes upstairs, and she opens the door, and she's like, "Hi." And he's like, "Hi." He goes, "I just wanted to tell you something. I really like you." She's like, "Why?" He goes, "I want to take you out to dinner." She's like, translation, "I'm an easy lay, and you want to get some more." Pretty much. But I thought I was impressed that he wanted to take her out to dinner first. Like what should have happened before they fell into each other's bed. So she's like, "I can't go out to dinner with you. I don't even know you." He's like, "You slept with me." She goes, "That's different." How? How? Just asking. So he's like, "How about tonight?" She goes, "I can't. I'm having dinner with my friends." And he's like, "Where? Quick, before you even, make something up." "I have dinner with friends at restaurant Denial." He goes, "Oh, I have a buddy that works there. Great. I'll meet you there." She goes, "Fine." He goes, she says 7 o'clock. He goes, "Okay." And he's about to walk away. And he comes back as she's about to close the door. He goes, "What time are you really meeting your friends?" And she says, 9. And he's like, I love him. I've always been endeared to Steve throughout the bad and the good and all the ups and downs and the way that it turned out. I really do. And he walks away, and she's like, "Oh, crap." And again, I wish I could give you the full reaction of what I was in 1999. I was like, oh, he's kind of cute. This is going to go nowhere. Mm-hmm. It went somewhere. Now we get to go back to the man, back to the myth, less the Viagra. Denial. We are going to denial. Come, join me. It's very nice over here. It's where we all pretend everything is okay, and then we just wake up one day and be like, maybe that is a river in Egypt. I need to swim my way out. They do. Off to denial we go. Listen, I might get emotional at the end of this one because no matter how many times I watch it, I still tear up. So fair warning, I might do an ugly cry when I go into the ending scene because it gets me every single freaking time. Back then, on rewatch, even today, I'm still holding back the tears. So we have Carrie going up to Mr. Big's apartment, and she's nervous about having to do this date with her friends, and she was really excited about it. So she knocks on the door, and Mr. Big, of course, is not dressed, and she's like, you're not properly dressed, hop to it. And he's like, yeah, about that. Do you mind if I don't go? And she turns around, brokenhearted as always. She goes, but my friends are expecting you. And he goes, yeah, but they're your friends. They'll be good with just you. And, it's been raining and I'm tired. And she's like, internalizing yet again. And she says, fine. And she walks out. And I'm just going to say this. This whole thing about her and him meeting her friends was not about the reality of her wanting them to get to know him. She just wanted to prove to her friends that he was different and that their relationship had changed. And this is actually working. Had nothing to do with a legitimate, wanting to get to know your friends crap, because that reaction was disappointment because she knows she had to disappoint her friends. And I go back to what I said. What does it matter? What does it matter? Your relationship is your relationship. Okay. It shouldn't matter if you want to prove anything to your friends. You're not proving anything to your friends. You're trying to prove it to yourself. That's my rant for that scene. So as she's walking to the denial, I love it. She's narrating that she doesn't understand why she fell for this again, that nothing has changed in the relationship, that how could she expect someone that's so self-centered at 42 years old can be taken out, and be, a normal human being. That voice in her head that I keep saying, should someone listen, grab that person and bring them out, because she sensibly knows that she's wrong. She just refuses to listen. So as she goes in, and Charlotte's like, they won't seat us until all our party is here. What time do you think Big will get here? And she's, fidgeting. She goes, I don't know. He's coming after work. And she narrates that she didn't have the heart to tell Charlotte about what happened in her fallen hero. In comes Steve, and he's holding the drinks, and, Samantha's like, oh, look at you. He goes, yeah, if you want, good service, call a bartender. And then Miranda's like, yeah, and if you want a good F, call a bartender. And everybody at the table stopped. It even shocked Samantha. So when it even shocks Samantha, it's not good. And she's like, what is funny? And he's like, can I see you over here, please? And she walks away saying, the gods are punishing me for having casual sex. No, you're punishing yourself, you big dingling. Okay. So as she goes to meet him at the bar. He goes, yeah, thank you for that. And I just have one question. Why do you hate all men? And she's like, excuse me? And he's like, yeah, I don't know what it is, because all of that, you just met me. That was not about me. And she's like, oh, she was offended. And he says, can you wait a second? Can you please, for a minute, believe that I'm not a full of shit guy, that I do like you, and the other night was special? And she's like, no, maybe I slept with too many bartenders. And she stomps off, goes back to the table. He says, thank you for, it was nice meeting you ladies. And he's walking out with his, sad face. And Carrie has decided at that moment that she's going to tell them, hey, maybe we should just get a table for the four of us. And Miranda chimes in, you see, I told you Big is not coming. All men are shit. And, poor Charlotte is like, no, that's not true. He's coming, right? And Samantha's like, what's going on? You could see in her face, like, what's happening? What's going on? And the moment stops, and I was like, you see, there he is. And in the most egregious, exaggerated, not egregious, exaggerated slow motion. Big is coming down the stairs and she turns around and she's so happy that he showed up for her. And she gives him the biggest hug and narrates that it moved Miranda so much how Big showed up for her that she left the table. And she says, and just like that, as she runs up the stairs, so Miranda left denial. Oh my God, I don't know why. It was the first time that I heard, and just like that. She literally said, and just like that, Miranda left denial. So she runs out of the restaurant, and of course, it's pouring rain, like every urban myth that we've heard. She yells out for him. She runs over to him. She goes, maybe I can believe. And they start kissing. And as Carrie narrates that from there on in, every promiscuous woman will hear the story of the one night stand that turned into a relationship. Look at me. If only Michael Patrick King could write like that again, we would have had a much different reboot. Okay. I don't know why it gets me. And I didn't know back then, even still, how far Steve was going to get into this. I was like, all right, this is cute. But it got me. It really did. So the next scene we have is that they're all back down at the bar as, she's kissing Steve in the rain. Pouring rain, may I just say. And as for our relationship, Big turns around. He says, hey, Samantha, did you ever get it on with that old man? And Samantha's like, what the hell? Didn't realize that she shared a personal story with someone. Okay. And they all start laughing. And as Carrie narrates, and that was the moment that Big and I became real. No, it isn't. Even though in 1999, I was like, fine. This is the one that she's going to be with. It just took 6 years to get there. My God. I could have gone up to Mount Everest longer than it took for these two to get together finally. And then he dies. So, I held back the tears. I didn't cry. But let me tell you, I watched this twice already. And that moment gets me every single time. There was just an infinity love that I had for Steve and Miranda. I don't know. They seem to make more sense than Big and Carrie. Okay. Next up. The epilogue. Stay tuned. Subscribe. Epilogue. Listen. We all can see where this ties into and just like that. The naming of the phrase and just like that, Miranda left denial. Michael Patrick King writing this one where, he actually really did a good job. The sadness of where they took the direction of the reboot. Steve, Big, Carrie. It was beautifully executed from everyone. Ironically, the three names in the title really referred to the three ladies. Charlotte didn't have a big role to play in this, but it brought up like the fact that can you be with someone, at a senior age for 10 to 12 years and, live millionly happily ever after? Would you actually put yourself in that position? You do question that, because we see it all around us all the time. What would you give up? Like great sex, turn off the lights, call it a day and wear your diamonds kind of scenario. I don't know. I mean, there's just so many people who are doing that now, and it's more normalized now, believe it or not. Can you really make a one night stand turn into a relationship? Well, I told you about my friend and she did, but it wasn't a healthy relationship. And it turns out that it wasn't healthy at the end for Steve and Miranda, but they had years together. We never got to really see them after the second movie. We just saw that she blew it up afterwards because she wanted to become a lesbian. But we have to presume that they had some great years in between after the forgiving of what he did to her and, having an affair and stuff like that. And they both agreed to not talk about it again. But forgiving is not forgetting. That's for sure. Because I don't know if I can actually do that. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I know that I've had one person cheat on me And I was never able to forgive that person. And I couldn't forget, So I'm not put in that position. And I know many people who have been put in that position. Hillary Clinton. Um, can they get over that process? It's a painful one. You know what I'm saying? And, this whole thing about Carrie, sh- you know, ditching her friends for Big, and exactly what Miranda said, it's still all about him. It's never about you. And the way that she fawns all over him, and she's so thirsty for everything that he get, freaking, singing to her, calling him his girlfriend, not in front of her, but behind her back, and so, it's so stupid. And him cooking for her and her just forgetting about, her friends is the running theme from when they are together, from when they broke up, from when she tried to get, believe it or not, I don't think she did that with Aiden. She was more restricted with Aiden, believe it or not, because she wasn't into Aiden. And then the whole thing that happens afterwards, this is where it starts. I'm sorry if you hear noise, but these are my neighbors who have decided at 9:30 that this is the party. I cannot wait to move. You have no clue. No clue. So forgive the noise. I can't drown out the noise. So at the end of the day, what I want to tie in is the writing and lack thereof in the reboot. These are the emotional moments that this show brings out, that was so lacking in Just Like That, and it's sad because the person that was predominantly writing, especially after we get into season 3 through 6, which I think he took over pretty much, and she becomes executive producer, SJP, we're still the core people and Just Like That. Where did it go wrong, Michael? Where? Who peed in your cornflakes? Why were you so angry and Just Like That? Because that was an angry show. It was an angry show towards every kind of storyline. There wasn't even a storyline. There were just not even vignettes. There were just mosh posh of scenarios that went nowhere. I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you, and maybe I should look this up. If the intention was for Big to stay, I've asked this question before, and I got to really look into it because I know that Candace Bushell did have her Mr. Big, and she ended up not marrying him. She ended up marrying the version of Petrosky, which, by the way, he cheated on her, and she's divorced now. Ironically, but her Mr. Big was mimicked from this version, and she didn't end up with him. I don't think that the intention was for Big to be such a long-term character. It's just that they tried to appease the fans who wanted her to be with Big and not Petrosky. And that's fine. It's a story. It ended itself the way it needed to ended itself. I've heard other, series that try to pivot, and the fans were screaming like, don't you dare, don't you dare, and they wanted to appease the fans. My thing is that if Michael Patrick King had such possibilities, had such great writing at some point, why couldn't you bring that spa into the reboot? He lost it. Him, SJP, the crew, the cast, not the crew. They lost the chutzpah, the emotional moments that to this day, look, I'm trying not to tear up, still make me cry. This is why I can pocket this series and leave it the way and where it is, regardless of what happened. I'm going to call the reboot a fluke. I really am. I'm going to love this series for what it is, for what it was, what it meant to me then, what it means to me now, where we're going to go travel to right now, my beautiful community, my beautiful people who are following with me on this. I hope that you feel this impact as well and that you remember these things, because I know that many of you come here and you've already seen it. And I hope that you're enjoying the way I'm bringing it to you, because it's coming from my heart. There's no script. I do this from memory. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to remember every single moment of every single line, but I try to bring it to you with the love and the care that I felt and feel for the show. And I hope that it comes through and it resonates with you. So tell me how you felt. Did it make you cry too? Because I'm still trying to hold back tears. Okay. I think I'm just being emotional. Damn it. The show brings out this emotion in me. And we've all been here, seen me ugly cry. Y'all followed me before, so you know how I get. Tell me how you felt. Tell me, was this one of your favorites? Do you feel the same way about the loss of the Michael Patrick King legacy of his writing and his storytelling? Because it's very clear to me that there was nothing of that in the reboot. So We're halfway through. We're almost done. Pretty soon, in a couple of weeks, we'll be going into the year 2000 and the ending of this season 2. For the OG watchers, you know what happens. Oh God. This is what frustrates me about Mr. Big and this whole bullcrap about, oh, you're my girlfriend. Oh, you're not my girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Listen, 2 more coming this week. I have another one I'm going to bring up for a completely different title. Please understand that my interjection of the Kardashians and the surgery was no disrespect to her. You can choose to age however you want to age. Botox, surgery, whatever the hell you want to do. My thing was facelifts or whatever the hell this man did has come a long freaking way. If this is what's being done now in my generation, what the hell is going to happen 10, 20 years from now? It's only going to get better. We're never going to look or even act our age anymore. And I am not sure how I feel about that yet. I really am not. I'm really on the fence about it. I think it's very impressive work. So please don't come at me at the comments that, oh, that I'm being disrespectful. I'm not. I'm really fascinated by this because my grandmother had a facelift and I didn't know about that. Not until maybe 20 years later, and when I looked at her and I saw a scar on her neck and I was like, what is that from? And she goes, you don't remember when I got a facelift? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, Grandma? She goes, because I remember her coming back from a hospital and she had that big white thing on her face and her face was puffy. But I was like 7 years old. How the hell was I supposed to know that it was a facelift? I thought something happened to her. I was like, is that what that was? She goes, yes. So what did they do to her? Who is this Dr. Levine? Who's this miracle witch doctor? Listen, I want you to all have a beautiful, beautiful, blessed week. And I'll see you very soon. Take care. Goodbye. Mwah.